My minister has informed me that somehow some of our officials made you to pay visas to come home. And he asked me to apologize, which I do. When one comes home, they don't pay to come home. And I want to promise you that that might be the last time you are looking for a visa to come to Kenya.
So as you saw in that first clip, President Ruto of Kenya has came out with some exciting news, and there's been a lot of videos here on YouTube about it, a lot of talk on Black Twitter, a lot of talk in all other social media platforms that, hey, the diaspora will be allowed to come back to Africa for free. And when we're talking about the diaspora, we're not talking about the Kenyan diaspora, because the Kenyan diaspora typically is already Kenyan. We mean those people who have been sort of eliminated from the conversation for many years: African Americans, Black British, and Black Canadians. And this has caused a lot of excitement, especially here on Black YouTube, especially in the Pan-African sector. There's a particular channel by the name of the Residential Tourists, a husband and wife. They're also known as the Mohammeds. And they also made a video on the same subject, and they touched on some really interesting points that I felt that you needed to hear today. Let's play that clip.
Of color in the diaspora. Wanting to be welcomed and wanting to have a place to call home if they choose to come to the continent. This is exciting news for us, for those people. And one reason being, we've had many countries do year returns where they're welcoming Black Americans or welcoming Black people in the diaspora to come to the country and just see what the country has to offer. But a lot of times when they come, they're just coming to see the country. There's nothing put in place to welcome the people. There's nothing put in place to make a transition easy for them. Or it doesn't even have to be easy, but at least it's something put in place for the person to come and welcome you into the country. So we've been doing some research. We were researching, and we found out to this date that there's no African country that has put in place a welcoming where anyone in the Black diaspora can come and is visa free for them. No African country has put that in place. Exclusively. The Black man, the Black woman. Right. Now, we do know that there's between 8 and 10 countries on the continent that made it visa free for Americans, which is great. Yeah. But nothing put in place for the Black American or the Black Canadian, the Black from any other country. Unless you have that blue passport, then you're allowed to come in visa free. So that's kind of disheartening, because for a lot of us, we're thinking we're coming home. And why do we have to pay something to come back home? And you don't think of just a visa one time. When someone's trying to move home, you're paying visas and paying for just to have the right to be in that country over and over and over again. And it's not for your whole family, it's per person.
So as you heard right there, the wife, I don't know what her name is, shout out to the sister, but she made some interesting points that, listen, African countries want us to come back. And number one, there is no free visa for the diaspora. And you can get free entry into Africa if you have the blue passport. And I can tell you one of the countries in particular, I know for sure, that's South Africa. I know another one of Botswana. That means you can just get straight over there and, you enter in without, visa free. I think Senegal might be the other that I know of. But if you're from the diaspora, most of us are not trying to settle in South Africa. And if you're trying to bring your family, each time you come, you're paying a visa for the kids, right? So let's say, for example, Uganda's visa, which is quite affordable. It's $50 per person. But if you did want to do a visa, that was the East Africa entry visa that would get you into Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania, you're spending $100 per person, which is still not bad. But if you add up the fact that you got a husband, the wife, kids, grandma, something like that, they can come up to like $700. And let's say if you want to do that 3 or 4 times in a year, that's $2,100 in visa fees, which is very expensive. Secondarily, she talks about there's no really infrastructure for these people like us to come back and get a welcome. There's nothing in set in stone for us, which is right. Typically, the diaspora will be responsible for coming up and setting up its own initiatives for the diaspora. Then the government will come in later and do that. But now, check this out. I want to also talk about this, right? Because Go Black to Africa, who is my brother in arms in this, he made a really good video with some strong criticisms and put some doubt in the game about the initiative that President Ruto is trying to push. I'd like to play that clip right now, and then I want to come back.
You know, I like Kenya's president, Ruto, who is the newest that they have had here in the last year. And I'm liking what he does. It sounds good what he says. A man who believes in his own faith. Kind of reminds me of our beloved Magufuli, who passed away here the last couple of years over in Tanzania. Very exciting news, but I believe there might be a catch. And think about this. How is he going to get away with saying the diaspora when you have many of other nationalities who live in your country, especially in Mombasa, where you have a lot of Indians, some Lebanese, even a Chinaman can be probably found there in Kenya. And I wonder what the backlash is going to be. I wonder, how do you even define the diaspora? What percentage of black can you have in you? Is it somebody who wants to identify being black? Is it somebody who can say their grandmama, great-great-grandmama, stepfather? How are you going to be able to clarify that a person is a diaspora? Now, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but these are some things that we're going to have to think about, that even Kenya is going to be thinking about to vote. So I wouldn't get so excited. Though I wish that other countries would take note and do the same thing. I'm quite sure there's going to be some stipulations, because he did mention that African Americans, those from the US, Canada, Nigeria, South Africa, but even a European in South Africa considers himself to be African.
So guys, you heard what Go Black to Africa said. And again, if you guys listen to this argument, it's very similar to the reparations argument. African Americans have been talking about, especially if you want to use the hashtag ADOS and Yvette Carnell or Tariq Nasheed with the hashtag FBA. Critics of reparations says, listen, how do you qualify who is African American? Because anybody can say, I'm African American. I can have 1% blood and say I'm African American, or 2% blood and say I'm African American. How do you qualify that? Because people will try to do that. Now we're living in an age where you can say, I feel like I'm this sex and I'm now this sex. Now, obviously that might not work so well in Africa, but the similar argument is applicable to this whole situation of those people who have been living in Africa. Hey, I live in North Africa. I'm also African. We're in the African Union because Morocco, which has left the African Union, by the way, is in the African Union. I'm Libyan. I'm in the African Union. I'm in the African Free Trade Agreement. I'm a white South African. I'm African. So I should be able to come and get a free visa into Kenya, although I believe Kenya and South Africa already have that agreement right now. But do you see what as my buddy, as one of my friends says here on YouTube, the kerfuffle that we're dealing with? Do you see the problems that that are dealing with. And I don't know if Ruto is saying this because obviously it sounds good, and I know he's getting a lot of criticism right now because of the taxation hikes he's been having in his administration. A lot of the social media content creators have been complaining about Ruto and some of his new initiatives. So is this something that Ruto is saying because, Ruto wants to, gain some favor? He's been heavily criticized in his administration in his first year. Is that what it is? Or is it true that, hey, this is going to be the truth, that, hey, people are going to be able to come to Kenya? I have been seeing, though, evidence of what he's talking about. The Africa Free Trade Agreement is something that we have seen Kenya and South Africa, no visa going back and forth, and also Uganda and South Africa. So that's something that we are seeing slowly but surely, but we don't know. How can Ruto prove this? How can you prove if you're black or not, in the diaspora, to get a free visa to Kenya? I think it would be great. Kenya is an awesome country. The East African community has done a wonderful job in my comparison to what I've been hearing about what's going on with ECOWAS. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great opportunity to explore. But will it happen? I'm not sure. He could just be saying it. He could not. But guys, what do you think in the comments? I want to give a shout out to the two channels I mentioned. One was called Residential Tourist. Make sure you check them out on YouTube. A husband and wife team making some great content. The other, obviously, is Go Black to Africa. He came and visited with us here in Uganda. We were great to have him. He's a great brother on camera and off. So guys, what do you think? Do you think this is a ploy to get us excited, or do you think that we're seeing the change in Africa to really reach us in the diaspora to do some great things here on the continent? Well, guys, it's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson. I'm signing out. Peace.